Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting others, so let's start. During the previous nights, the Ukrainians struck back. They used hundreds of drones to attack deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. The Ukrainians began their attack with drones right after the Russians finished their previous attack. According to information we have, the Ukrainians used hundreds of drones and the Ukrainians started their attack somewhere around at 2 p.m. of the Russian time, and they continued these attacks almost till the morning of the 23rd of February of 2026. And this is the first picture that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources somewhere at 2 or 4 p.m. or something like this. And according to this picture, by that moment, the Ukrainians used already 100 drones to attack deep inside of the territory of Russia. The Russians stated that between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. of Moscow time, they managed to bring down and to destroy 130 drones of the armored forces of Ukraine. And between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. the Russians destroyed 71 drones. So basically between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. of Moscow times, the Russians destroyed more than 200 drones that were flying in the direction of the Moscow region. And this is the next picture that was published by the Ukrainians somewhere around 8 p.m. where we can see the exact roads of how exactly the Ukrainians were attacking deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. And right after this attack, the Ukrainians launched another attack, but this time the Ukrainians began attacking in the southern direction and in the direction of the central part of Russia. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation this morning stated that in this area, in this direction, the Russians managed to destroy 152 drones between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. of the Moscow times, and 3 hours before, 36 more drones were destroyed in the same region. So what exactly the Ukrainians were attacking and whether the Ukrainians managed to deal damage? First, let's talk about the city of Belgorod. According to information we have, the Ukrainians during the previous night attacked the substation that is located to the northwest of the city of Belgorod. So this substation, this infrastructural object was destroyed, and during the previous night we received lots of videos of how exactly the Russians were bringing down Ukraine's drones, and here we can see the moments when most likely the Ukrainians attacked this substation. We can see a lot of lightnings. So this facility was damaged, and according to the governor of this area, the power outages were recorded right after this attack occurred. But the city of Belgorod and this substation wasn't the most important target that Ukrainians were trying to damage. According to information we have, during the previous night, the Ukrainians managed to deal damage to a facility around the settlement by the mayor of Almyteyevsk. So the distance between this settlement of Almyteyevsk and most likely between the launching site in the area of the city of Kharkiv is around or more than 1,200 kilometers. So this is the distance. The Ukrainians most likely were attacking this territory with the Flamingo missiles, cruise missiles, and we have lots of videos from this area. For example, in this video we can see probably the situation when security service, special services were moving in the direction of this oil refinery with the purpose to stabilize the situation. Here we can see the moment. So after probably the consequences of attack, probably just seconds after drones hit this territory. And this is probably the most important article. A Ukrainian drone struck the NPS Kalekina, the most powerful and most important main oil pumping station on Transneft Prikamye. The station receives oil from several main pipelines, mixes different flows, and forms the main volume for export to the Druzhba pipeline, which supplies oil to Europe through Belarus and further to Poland, Germany, Hungary, and Slovakia. So, as you can see, the Ukrainians decided to resolve issues with Slovakia and Hungary by attacking this facility. I would like to remind you that during the previous days we received lots of updates from Hungary and from Slovakia. I would like to remind you that Orban issued an ultimatum to Ukrainians. According to this ultimatum, Ukraine must resume oil supply of Hungary and Slovakia through the Druzhba pipeline. Orban stated that until this happens, no diesel shipments from Hungary to Ukraine, refusal of any military loan to Ukraine, no support for sanctions, the 20 sanctions package will be rejected. So this is the ultimatum from Slovakia and Hungary, and of course the Ukrainians realized that this is not a very good situation. They need diesel, they need electricity, because now the Ukrainians are attacking the Russians in the Zaporizhzhia direction, so this is not the moment when it's good to be cut from these resources. So that is why we can see this is the way how the Ukrainians resolve this issue. They basically attacked this site, this facility, with the purpose to blame Russians that this is the problem on their side, why they are not sending fuel, oil to the territory of Slovakia and Hungary through the Druzhba pipeline, but not the Ukrainian side, which means that most likely in coming days Ukrainians will launch the Druzhba pipeline, but we will not see fuel or oil going through this pipeline due to the current Russian problems, or something like this. We believe that this is exactly the point of Ukrainians. Now let's discuss the Russian missile attack. According to information we have, the Russians attacked the city of Odessa, and more precisely the port infrastructure in the area of the settlement of Chernomorsk. So this facility was attacked by 28 drones. At least this information was provided by pro-Russian sources. Furthermore, during the day we received updates from the Kherson and Nikolaev regions. If you remember, yesterday we received the video of how Russians were attacking objects of energy infrastructure in this area. We discussed this video. Here we can see the moments when most likely a Russian drone attacked the site, this territory, and today we received additional updates on this matter. Here we can see the changes, between the dates, and according to information we have, several transformers were heavily damaged or even destroyed by Russians. Furthermore, today we received the video from the city of Nikolaev. I would like to remind you that yes, the Russians also attacked this territory with drones, and according to local sources, several trains were completely damaged and destroyed. And today we received this video where we can see what exactly the Russians managed to damage and to destroy almost completely. So we see that parties continue attacking each other. Nobody is going to probably stop these attacks because we are at the most interesting and the most important part of negotiation process. But despite all these attacks, we continue receiving statements from Zelensky that he is not going to accept Russia's demands. Zelensky opposes troops withdrawal from Donbas and elections without guarantees. US insists on elections by summer, according to BBC. Zelensky stated that he is categorically opposed to the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from Donbas, even if it leads to a ceasefire. Such a move would divide society and would mean abandoning hundreds of thousands of people living in these territories. Zelensky believes that Ukraine will regain all its lost territories, but it's a matter of time due to the Ukrainian armed forces' lack of weapons. For him, victory now means preserving the country's independence. According to the BBC, the US is also insisting on holding general elections by summer. Zelensky is demanding security guarantees before this issue is considered and has not yet decided whether he will run again. He also asked Europe to pay for Ukraine's contract army, as in Russia, stating that European countries could finance the transition from a mobilization model to a contract system. He noted that in Russia, soldiers are paid for signing a contract, and Ukraine would like to do the same but lack sufficient funds. So this is the demands of Zelensky, and this is how he sees the development of the conflict. Another important statement was made by the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Syrsky. He stated that the Russian armed forces have failed to fulfill the objectives set by the Kremlin for 2025. He says that as a result of Ukraine's counterattacks that took place in 2025, he managed to ruin Russia's plans. As of the current situation on the ground, we see that the clashes continue in the Zaporizhzhia direction, and let's discuss everything in details. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, we received several videos from the Stepnogorsk direction, and all these videos are about how Russians were attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, as you can see according to this map, on the red-controlled territories. As of now, we don't know for sure what exactly the Russians were attacking. Either these videos are archived, or the Russians were attacking sabotage and reconnaissance groups of the armed forces of Ukraine that managed to infiltrate Russian positions. So this video shows attacks in the area of this building, basically in the central part of the settlement of Primorska, and few more strikes took place along these tree lines. As of now, once again, very difficult to say whether these are the consequences of Ukraine's counterattack in this area, or these are just infiltrations of Ukraine's sabotage and reconnaissance groups. We will decide today, and we will decide whether to change the map or not. As for the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Ukrainians continue their counteroffensive operation. I would like to remind you that the changes on the ground according to pro-Ukrainian sources during the previous days. So this is how the map has been changed since the beginning of the 13th of February of 2026. So this is the end of the 13th of February, and this is the end of the 14th of February. This is the end of the 15th of February. This is the end of the 17th. This is the 19th. This is the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of February of 2026. But as of the beginning of the 23rd of February of 2026, we haven't received anything that can confirm that indeed the Ukrainians managed to recapture all these settlements to raise flag or something like this. But today, pro-Western sources and experts continue updating their maps, showing something like this. And according to the latest updates that were published by pro-Western sources and pro-Ukrainian sources, the armed forces of Ukraine during the previous days managed to improve their position significantly and to capture all these territories, and that this, let's say, red corner, this top left red corner, this one is also in the complete control of the armed forces of Ukraine. So of course we are waiting for videos, we're waiting for geolocations, but you know that everything is possible. The Russians confirm that there are some activities from the Ukrainian side and that the Russians are successfully repelling these attacks. But once again, we're waiting for videos. We're waiting for videos, and if this counteroffensive operation is something that indeed is happening in this area, obviously in coming days we will see Zelensky himself, and he will come probably to Tchernovato or something like this to show that indeed something like this is happening in this direction. Now let's move further. As for the city of Konstantinovka, during the previous 24 hours, additional changes were recorded. The Russians improved their positions in the southwestern part of the city, improving their positions along N20 road. Furthermore, we have a video published by pro-Ukrainian sources of how Ukrainians were moving through the city of Konstantinovka using bikes. So we can see lots of Ukrainian soldiers walking in this area, vehicles of the armed forces of Ukraine, destroyed vehicles, and so on. This video shows how Ukrainians were moving in the southern part of the city, right in the area of the line of combat contact. A bit further to the north, the Russians destroyed the bridge in the central part of the city, or damaged the bridge once again with bombs, trying to reduce Ukraine's logistic capabilities. As for the Slaviansk direction, during the previous day, small changes were recorded in the central part of the settlement of Riznikovka. In this video, we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians that were moving in this region. So the Russians, as we discussed in the previous videos, are finishing the battle for this settlement. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians began bombing for the main defense layer in this region, in this sector to the east of the city of Slaviansk, around the settlement by the name of Kaleniki. So as you can see, there is a very big and huge stronghold that the Russians began offensive operation on. As for the Liman direction, we have just the video of how Russians were attacking the pontoon bridge and the bridge around the settlement of Bogorodichna. So there are two episodes. One of the bridges was destroyed around the settlement of Bogorodichna, the second one in the central part of the city of Konstantinovka. As for the Kupiansk direction, we haven't received anything. As for the northern directions, during the previous 24 hours, during the previous days, we received lots of updates from the area of the city of Kazachia Lopan. If we increase the numbers of updates since the beginning of February, you will see that the Russians are very active in this area. Furthermore, the Russians are conducting reconnaissance operation in this area, trying to understand what kind of positions the Ukrainians have here, what the Ukrainians are doing this. And during the previous 24 hours, Ukrainian sources published a video of how they were attacking surveillance and reconnaissance drones of the armed forces of the Russian Federation with their own drones. So the Russians are trying to understand what is the current status, what is the situation in this region. At the same time, the Russians continue offensive operation and continue attacking the settlements of Kazachia Lopan, Veterinarna with drones and with artillery and with aviation. So lots of geolocations, lots of videos are coming from this area. And furthermore, I would like to remind you that several days ago we got a report that Russians managed to capture the settlement of Veterinarna, but as of now, as you can see, without changes on the ground. So we believe that something big might happen in this area in coming days, and obviously the Russians will be forced to do this because the Ukrainians continue attacking the city of Belgorod from the city limits of the city of Kharkiv. So that is why the Russians obviously will be forced to increase the buffer zone in this area with the purpose to reduce attacks on the city of Belgorod itself. Furthermore, we have huge activities in the Sumy direction. The Russians continue their offensive operation in the area of the settlement of Kondratyevka. The Russians are attacking positions of the armored forces of Ukraine in the southern part of the settlement. Furthermore, the Russians are keeping advancing further in the direction of the villages of Karchakovka, Novosich, and Krapivnitskaya. Today, several pro-Russian sources adjusted the map, showing that the next tree line was captured by the Russians, and currently there are no more barriers between the Russian positions and the settlement of Krapivshina. Also, the Russians published lots of videos of how they were attacking with FPV drones the edge positions of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area, preparing this foothold before the ground operation. So the Sumy offensive most likely is going to be a primary offensive, or Sumy and Kharkiv offensives are going to be primary offensives of the spring military campaign. And that's it for the short video. The Military Summary channel reminds to we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.